I guess we can hand the microphone down that way. My name is Scott Hammond. Again, I'm a candidate for Assembly District 13. When it comes to schools, I'm a school teacher every day, and the most important thing that you can do for that child is put a good teacher in front of them. I know it kind of sounds a little cheeky, but I think that if you pay a good salary for a good teacher, you're going to get a person who's knowledgeable and knows how to be effective in front of that student. Every student learns differently. You're going to have some students who respond to you saying, "I'd like you to look up some information on the internet," and they go with it. Some students, you have to find a different way to do that. I think in our school district, we spend too much money on different programs. And we try to change our programs up every 2 years, a paradigm shift every 2 years, and then we have to train the teachers how to use that. I think that's a terrible waste of resources. I think we need to make sure we get in there and find better and more effective ways to teach the kids, and the best way to do that is to let the teachers become very proactive. That's where the empowerment schools come from. I remember a job I had several years ago. It was a part-time job. I worked for Sears, and I love my job, and I always do the best I can with whatever job I have, and so I became really good at it. So they offered me another job in the organization. I was what they call a specialist, and the specialist is a person who takes care of those problems. The people who call up who are very angry from the get-go, who don't like you already, and they don't even know you. I would handle problems from people from Alaska and from Hawaii, two probably the most difficult places to send products. I did that because they said that I had a really good personality and I knew how to take care of problems. And what I liked about Sears is that they said, okay, we're going to let you deal with the problem the best way you know how. We're going to empower you to make decisions, and we'll stand behind you. And that's what I like about the empowerment situation and other things. If we allow teachers to kind of innovate, that's where you're going to get the best change, and that's why private schools tend to be a little bit better. Private schools will push the school kids, and then they'll also get the support of the parents, because the parents see that the child is being pushed, and every child wants that. They may not like it, but they love you in the end. There's a few letters that I treasure as a teacher that I've been given from students who I had years ago. And I won't share with you the personal information inside, but I get a letter every 2 or 3 years, and that's what motivates me to go back and make sure that I push the kids. Sometimes it's hard in class when they're looking at you and they're saying, "Oh, why do you make it so hard? I just want to get a C or just want to get a B." Like, no, that's not the purpose. The purpose is for you to be educated in the end. I think that if we empower the schools to do that, we don't have to spend more money in the schools. I think we spend enough money. And there is no magic bullet. There's no magic level that we need to spend on kids. It depends on how you are spending the money. My name is Scott Hammond.
Lou DeSalvio, Assembly District 13. I do agree with him on that aspect, but we need to get our children out of the 19th century and put them into the 21st century technology. That's number one. I mean, they're learning out of textbooks right now that I had when I went to school here. Okay, we need to give them the technology that they deserve. I deal with students every day. Myself, as an instructor, I can only teach as fast as my slowest student. And what I give them is I give them the technology and the career path that's going to provide them with that living by teaching them the stuff that they need. Right now, our schools, I have a son in private school myself, and I have a daughter that is in 11th grade at Arborview. And the reason I put my son in private schools because the city schools weren't working. They just flat weren't working. I was still having to get myself a tutor to keep my daughter's grades up so I can make sure she can get a scholarship to be what she wants to be in life. And that is exactly why I put my son in a private school. And we need to do exactly like the private schools do. We need to give them the control of that money and let them fund it and let those teachers teach at their pace and to be able to get our kids up to the speed that they need to be at. I deal with it myself on a daily basis. I think each school should get allotted their certain amount of cash, and then they figure out exactly what they need to do with that cash in order to make that school successful. That is what I feel on that issue. And we need to give them the technologies that they deserve, because the generation that they are today is Generation Y. And these kids nowadays, if you could put a book in front of them, and you could put a laptop in front of them, and that laptop will only do what that book will do, you have to physically turn those pages, or you can take that laptop and you can scroll up and down and turn those pages, and you ask these kids today, ask your own kids when you go home, what would you rather have in front of you? And they're going to tell you a laptop. How many tens of millions of dollars does the school district spend on books when that laptop is the storefront to the world? They can get more information out of that laptop, and you can provide those kids. You can't sit here and tell me that there isn't an IBM or a Dell or a company out there that wouldn't want to have some kind of lucrative contract with the school district as a pilot program for a few years to determine, to see if this would work. And I believe it would work, because you're actually giving them the stuff that they need in order to be successful in life. Thank you.
Note to the panel members, 10 minutes.
Nathan Taylor, State Assembly District 13 candidate. Unfortunately, there's not enough time to answer your question because this is a very complex issue. We just can't do it any justice talking about education. It's one of the biggest things I've been talking about in my campaign. Having been a UNLV graduate, going to school here, I care deeply about our education system. A little disclosure, my little sister's a school teacher. I care deeply about our teachers and our education system. To answer your question directly, you were talking about per pupil spending was the question that you brought up, and the $10,000 per student. Yes, you're right. Throwing money at the problem is not the answer. It's just not. If you look at some of the school districts and the schools on the East Coast, take Washington, D.C. for example, some of the districts around the Baltimore area, okay? They spend a lot more money than that, but their scores, their testing are lower than ours, but yet it's not talked about. Also, the numbers are skewed when you start talking about Las Vegas and our education system. And I take this very seriously. Okay, I care a lot about our education system for a bunch of different reasons. But what I will say is this: Las Vegas is a very unique community when it comes to education. It's one of the most transient populations for students in the country, and that's part of our issue. The other problem is that Las Vegas has been dealing with since I was a kid is that I can graduate high school and I can get a job parking cars, $55,000 a year. I don't need a college education. I knew a guy back in the day who made 80 grand a year. He didn't have to go to college. We're going to have to hold our corporations, our companies, and our businesses accountable for the education system as well, because they need to be employing educated people. And finally, where I'm at on the education system, and I'll just tell you a little story, is that we cannot talk about anything else in the state, diversifying the economy, making Nevada a better place to live, work, raise our children, unless we fix the education system. And the biggest reason that is because I was in Houston last year, sitting with a friend of mine, and we're talking, and the guy next to me says, he says, I'm a CEO here in Houston. I own an energy company. Love Las Vegas, love Nevada, would love to move my business there. But the reason I don't is because I don't want to hire your people. Because you have an uneducated workforce. And as legislators, we're going to need to go up there, and we're going to need to change the system from top to bottom. And there's been a lot of good suggestions here by some of these other candidates, and I'm going to tell you they're all great ideas. We got to stop taking the money and putting it in an administration, and it needs to go in the classroom. When I meet an administrator that's never seen the inside of a classroom and they're making 120 grand a year, we've got a problem. And we're going to need to go up there, and we're going to actually need to change the system from the inside out and make it better so that Nevada can be a better place to live. And that's what I plan on doing when I get up to Carson City. Nathan Taylor.